There's a sound you'd know anywhere, even now. The click of a key in a lock, the door swinging into a house where no one says hello. And then, that specific silence. Not peaceful, not scary, just yours. The hum of the refrigerator, a clock somewhere, the house settling around a kid who is, for the next 3 or 4 hours, completely in charge of themselves. We were the Latchkey kids. We came home to that silence so many times we stopped noticing it. Made our own snack, did our homework, or didn't, waited for a car in the driveway that wouldn't show up until dark. And here's what nobody told us. Those quiet afternoons weren't just something we got through. They were doing something. They were wiring the brain we still walk around in today. The way we relax, or can't. The way we trust, or don't. The reason we'd rather carry everything ourselves than ask one person for help. This isn't a story about being neglected. It's about what a developing brain does when it has to grow up too early, in a house that's a little too quiet. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with what was actually happening in there. A child's brain isn't a small adult brain. It's an unfinished one. For the first decade of life, it's supposed to build itself by borrowing from someone bigger. When a young kid gets scared or overwhelmed, they don't have the wiring yet to calm themselves down. They're built to look up at a grown-up's face, read that the grown-up is calm, and download that calm. Scientists call it co-regulation, a nervous system learning to settle by leaning on a steadier one beside it. That's the design. That's what the afternoons were supposed to be for. But for millions of us, at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, there was no steadier nervous system in the room. There was a quiet kitchen and a kid. So we did what the brain does when the expected support isn't there. We skipped a step. We started regulating ourselves before we were built to. Became the calm adult in the room at 9 years old because somebody had to be. And we were good at it. That's the part that fooled everyone. A latchkey kid looks competent, self-sufficient, no trouble at all. But underneath that easy kid, the brain was quietly rerouting around a gap, learning the lesson it would keep for life. You handle it. You're the one who's here. The second thing the empty house did was teach us to listen. Think about being 10 years old, alone, as the light goes down. Every house makes noise. The furnace kicks on, the walls tick as they cool, a branch scrapes a window. To an adult, that's nothing. To a kid with no one to ask, "Did you hear that?" Every sound is a question that needs an answer. Is that normal? Is that the house? Or is that something? So we learn to track it. All of it. There's a part of the brain called the amygdala, the smoke detector, the thing that scans for threat and decides how on edge to keep you. In a safe, supervised home, it learns it can stand down. Somebody else is watching. But in an empty house, hour after hour, year after year, that smoke detector never fully switches off. It learns that staying alert is the job, sets its baseline a little higher, and leaves it there. We got very good at this. We could tell our parents' car from every other engine on the street. We knew which stair creaked, knew the difference between the house settling and a door opening. We weren't paranoid, we were calibrated, a nervous system tuned in childhood to notice everything and assume we were the only one who would. That tuning didn't expire when we turned 18. Whatever the exact number was, it was a generation. Millions of brains in millions of quiet houses, all learning the same lesson on the same afternoon. Stay alert. Nobody's coming to tell you it's fine. Here's the third thing, the one we're proudest of without realizing what it cost. We ran the controls way too early. Right behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex. It plans ahead, weighs options, manages risk, stops you from doing something stupid. It's also the slowest part of the brain to finish, not fully online until your mid-20s. That's not a flaw, it's the schedule. Kids are supposed to have an adult's prefrontal cortex on loan, a grown-up who does the planning and worrying so the kid can just be a kid. We didn't have one on call. So we ran our own. At 10, we decided what to eat and when, whether to answer the door, what to do if the smoke alarm went off, if a stranger called, if a sibling got hurt. We rehearsed emergencies in our heads while we watched cartoons. We knew where the fuse box was, knew not to tell anyone on the phone we were home alone. We were running adult executive function, planning, risk assessment, impulse control, on a brain years away from finishing that hardware. It built those circuits early because we demanded it, and we came out with planning and self-control most adults would envy. But there's a cost to forcing a system to do a job before it's ready. We learned to lead with the part of us that manages and protects, and to quietly shelve the part that just wanted to be taken care of, because nobody was offering. Now the one nobody warned us about, the co-regulation gap. Remember, kids learn to soothe themselves by first being soothed by someone else, thousands of times, until the brain copies the pattern and can run it alone. That's how a person learns, deep in the body, that distress is survivable and comfort exists. When there's no one there to do the soothing, the brain doesn't give up. It improvises. It finds another way to make the bad feelings stop. For a lot of us, that meant going numb, getting very quiet and very still and very small until the feeling passed on its own. We didn't self-soothe so much as self-mute. We learned to handle big emotions by feeling them less. Attachment researchers have a name for what this builds. They call it avoidant. It's not coldness. It's a brain that learned, early and correctly, that reaching out probably won't be answered, so it stops reaching. It decides the safest place to put your needs is nowhere, because needing someone is a setup for disappointment. We carried that out of the empty house and into every relationship since. The partner who says we're hard to read, the friend who didn't know we were going through something until it was over. That's not a character flaw. That's a 9-year-old who learned to handle it alone, still running the only program that ever kept them safe. Now, before this turns into a list of damage, here's the part that's actually a gift. Because the empty house gave us something too. It gave us boredom. Real, vast, unstructured, nobody coming boredom. Hours with no plan, no screen worth watching, no adult organizing our time. And that's not wasted time. When the brain isn't being directed by anything outside it, a network switches on. The default mode network. It's the brain talking to itself, where daydreaming lives, and imagination, and the slow work of building an inner world. We had hours of that, every single afternoon. We narrated games to ourselves, built whole worlds out of whatever was in the house, read the backs of cereal boxes because they were there. We learned how to be alone with our own minds and not be frightened by it. That's rarer than it sounds now. A lot of younger people have never once been that bored because there's always been a screen to fill the gap. They never found out what their own mind does when nothing is feeding it. We know exactly what ours does because we spent a childhood finding out. So when we say we're fine being alone, we mean it. The solitude that looks lonely from the outside is, for us, the most comfortable room in the house. The empty house took some things, but it also handed us a deep, durable, unkillable ability to keep our own company. That one we keep on purpose. If this is landing closer than you expected, stay with me for a second, because here's the part that matters most. The brain that you built in that house didn't stop running when you grew up. Wiring laid down early, repeated thousands of times, becomes the default. It doesn't ask your permission anymore. It just runs in the background, the way it always has, in a 40 or 50-year-old who hasn't lived in that house for decades. So let's talk about what that childhood wiring is doing in your life right now, today. As an adult who, on paper, is perfectly safe and still can't quite convince the rest of yourself of it. Start with the listening. That smoke detector we tuned up as kids is still running. It never got the memo that the danger is over. So as adults, a lot of us cannot fully relax. We sit in a calm room. On a good day, nothing wrong. And some part of us is still scanning the perimeter, waiting for the sound that means something needs handling. We call it being responsible, on top of things. Light sleepers, the one who catches the small thing before it becomes a big thing. What it actually is a nervous system set to high alert before we were old enough to choose, and never given a reason it trusted to stand down. We're not anxious because something's wrong. We're anxious because nothing being wrong feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar reads as threat. The calm itself makes us suspicious. We wait for the other shoe, because in the house we grew up in, there was always another shoe. It shows up in the smallest ways. We can't sit through a movie without one ear on the rest of the house. We check the locks twice. we're tired in a way sleep doesn't fix, because the part of us that's been on watch since we were 9 has never once been relieved of duty. Nobody ever came home and said, "I've got it now, you can stop." So we never stopped. Which brings us to the hardest one. The reason we'll carry the heaviest thing across the longest room, rather than ask the person right there to grab one end. The self-reliance circuit. When a brain learns young that the reliable move is to handle it yourself, that lesson goes deep. It stops being a choice and becomes an instinct. So as adults, asking for help doesn't just feel uncomfortable. For a lot of us, it feels genuinely unsafe in the body, the way stepping off a ledge feels unsafe. Some buried part of us learned that depending on people is how you get let down, and it's been protecting us ever since by making sure we never depend on anyone. You can see it everywhere. We never delegate because it's easier to do it ourselves than to need someone to come through. We're the friend everyone calls who never calls anyone. We'll be in real trouble. Health, money, the marriage, and the people closest to us have no idea, because telling them means handing over the one thing we swore at 9 we'd never hand over again: our self-sufficiency. The whole identity we built in that quiet house. And the cruel part is, it works against the thing we want most. We want to be close to people, but closeness runs on needing each other. And needing is the one move our wiring flagged as dangerous a long time ago. So here's what I most want you to hear. The reframe, backed by the actual science. Your brain did not malfunction. It did exactly what a healthy brain is supposed to do. It adapted brilliantly to the environment it was handed. A brain that turns hypervigilant in an unpredictable house isn't broken. It's correct. A child who learns extreme self-reliance when no one's reliably there isn't damaged. They're meeting reality with the best survival strategy available. Every one of these traits was a smart answer to a real question. The long-term research on how childhood shapes the adult keeps landing in the same place. The brain is built to be shaped by what happens to it early. That's not a weakness in the design, it's the whole point of it. And the same plasticity that let a quiet house wire us for vigilance is the plasticity that means we're not stuck with it. That's the good news. A brain that could be shaped at 9 can still be shaped at 49. Slower, with more effort, but the door is not closed. The vigilance can be told gently and repeatedly that the danger is over. The self-reliance can learn to let one person in on purpose, not because we were broken and need fixing, but because the adaptation that saved us as kids is allowed to be updated by the adults we've become. Here's where I'll leave you. Somewhere in you, there's still a kid in a quiet house, ear turned to the hallway, doing the math on dinner, handling it. That kid did an extraordinary thing. They kept it together when no one was watching them keep it together. They built, out of silence and a house key and too many empty hours, a brain that could plan and notice and endure and be alone without falling apart. Nobody told us that's what was happening. Nobody told us those afternoons were the most formative thing that would ever happen to our nervous systems. We thought we were just waiting for a ride home. But now we know. Why we scan the room, why we can't ask, why the calm makes us nervous and the solitude feels like home. And knowing it is the first thing that's ever loosened its grip. We're not the generation that got coddled, and not the one that got broken. We're the one that quietly raised itself in the gap and came out capable, watchful, self-contained, and far stronger than anyone bothered to notice. The kid in the quiet house did the best they could with what they were given. And honestly, they did a remarkable job. It might be time we finally told them so. If any of this hit something real, if you finally understand why you are the way you are in a quiet room, or why just ask for help was never that simple, subscribe. We post twice a week on the quiet psychology of the generation that figured it out alone. In the comments, tell me one thing. What sound did your empty house make? The fridge, the clock, the furnace, the silence itself? For a lot of us, it's the first thing that comes back. I read every one. See you in the next one.